Duh.
I, an outspoken conservative Christian, have watched all of South Park Season 27. I have some thoughts, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive right into those. Hello everyone, I'm K-Swope. I'm the only YouTuber you know who voted today. There you go, check out the bling bling right there. But I will also tell you I'm not afraid of my religious and political views. I, of course, am a Christian, and I am a conservative. Now, I also love South Park. As you can see, I kind of brand my channel with my South Park avatar. I think it is, one of the funniest shows ever, honestly, and so I really, really enjoy South Park. I have a lot of thoughts going into Season 27, and things were going to get controversial, as you can see by my shirt. I'm a supporter of Charlie Kirk. Rest in peace, Charlie. So they do touch on that. There's going to be some thoughts, some nuance when we get into episode 2. But in case you don't know, Season 27 is only 5 episodes long, so I'm going to go episode by episode, talk about it briefly, and then I'm, of course, going to tell you what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, just generally how I felt. We're better to start then.
I'd like you all to put your hands together in welcoming Christ our Lord.
So this first episode is going to be one I'm probably going to spend a lot of time on. There's a lot to talk about and break down here. So for one, a lot's happening. Woke is dead. Cartman wakes up to find out that NPR is completely down. Now, it is true that President Trump, he's planning on, if he hasn't already, I haven't been following super duper closely, but cutting funds to PBS and NPR and all that kind of stuff. Cartman's disappointed because he likes hearing woke white liberal women just kind of complaining about stuff and this and that, and he just thinks it's really, really funny.
Mom! My favorite show just got canceled by the government.
So he's upset about that, which is, it's kind of funny. PC Principal has a assembly at the school, and I kind of love this. So, he says that, okay, he's become a hardcore Christian now, and he hires Jesus at the school, which is kind of funny, and he's changed the PC in his name for politically correct, right, as I'm sure you probably know, to Power Christian. So he's Power Christian Principal. I think that is hilarious, honestly. I think that is probably the funniest part, in my opinion, of this whole episode. Now, PC Principal, surprisingly enough, I knew when I started watching South Park that this character was going to show up at some point, and I did not think I was going to like him that much. Surprising to myself, I loved him, okay? In fact, he is like one of my favorite characters in the show, to be quite honest. And so I really enjoy PC Principal. He is just absolutely hilarious, and so I think he's still really, really funny here, changing his name from politically correct to Power Christian. I don't know, I just find that really, really funny. Now, I will say, though, there's this kind of idea that this is kind of toying with. And so I really feel like they make a big deal about Jesus being in the schools, and a lot of people don't like that. I have a few thoughts on this. For one, I think as Christians, our job is to tell everybody about Jesus, okay? The Great Commission. Last thing Jesus tells us before he leaves, okay? Very, very important. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and surely I'll be with you till the very end of the age. Now, that being said, though, I also don't think we should be forcing Christianity upon people, because what Jesus wants is he wants that relationship with you, and so we need to spread the gospel, but we cannot force people to follow Jesus, okay? That's just not kind of the way to go. So on one hand, I kind of think, what PC Principal's doing here is kind of in the forcing territory, but I also think that, as Christians, we should be, in the culture, putting Jesus in the culture, whether that's, schools or anything else. That's what we're called to do. That's literally what Jesus told us to do. So I'm sort of on the fence, a little nuanced, if you will. So I'm kind of mixed on this specific idea in this episode. But this episode also deals with, and I haven't really been following this that closely because I just generally don't care. But the whole idea, they're playing up this whole idea of pandering to Trump because, they're afraid that, because people are cutting things because I guess they're afraid of what he's going to do and things like that. So, that idea is very, very prevalent in this episode, especially when they end with the "He Gets Us" parody, but of Trump. That's pretty funny, I must say, because the "He Gets Us" ads are very, I guess, just strange if I were to word them anyway. And so to do a Trump version and stuff, that's, really, really funny. Now, full disclosure, I'm talking here, I'm a conservative, right? Donald Trump, let me put it like this. I voted for Trump in last election. I voted for him in the election before that. I would have voted for him in 2016 if I was old enough to vote. However, I was not. Now, hear me out, though. I did vote for Trump, but Trump, looking at the primaries and stuff for the Republican side, he was not my first pick. He was actually my third pick, okay? I liked Ron DeSantis. I liked Vivek Ramaswamy. Then I liked Trump number 3. The 2 other guys just so happened to drop out before I got a chance to vote for anybody, which is kind of disappointing for me, but I'd much rather take Trump over more Biden, or since he dropped out, more Harris. I don't want any of that. So I'm happy with the results of the election. Right, I did a whole breakdown of it, and talking about Elon Musk and everything like that in a previous video I did. You can check out if you want. But that being said, I really think that so many people are blowing this whole Trump thing out of proportion. Like, I don't think he's really attacking things that hard. Maybe people are scared of him, but he's not really enforcing anything that I've seen, at least. Now, I'm sure some guy in the comments who has nothing better to do with his time than, be really annoyed and has no life and just kind of sad person is gonna bring up a bunch of stuff. Oh, Trump said this and that I'm gonna have to do hours of research on. But the thing is, I don't really care enough. So if you're thinking about doing that, maybe just don't, because you're not gonna get anything out of me. But another idea we kind of see a lot in this episode as well is I feel like they think that conservatives don't care about people, which I think is the furthest thing from the truth. I think what you have is you have two sides, okay? The liberals, the conservatives, I think they're both caring about people but from different points of view. So with conservatives, you have a lot of religious people, okay, such as myself. And then you also have on the left side a lot of very non-religious, woke, like, hey, whatever makes you happy kind of thing. I think the biggest difference is that there's a big chasm between what makes you happy and what is actually good for you in society. And I think that's where a lot of that stuff comes in. I think a lot of what the liberals are doing and have done have been band-aid solutions, but maybe have not helped in the long run. So I think too, now I'm not a pro-economist, whatever. I don't know all that much about money. I hate math. But for example, take the tariff thing going on right now. The tariff thing, the idea behind that, regardless if you think it's good or bad, the idea behind the tariff thing that Trump's got going on is that we need to rip off some of these band-aid solutions in order to actually have some actual healing, okay? That's the idea. I'm not saying whether or not that's true or false. That's for you to decide. Do your own research. I don't know. But that's at least the idea. That is supposed to help us in the long run, but it might hurt us in the short run. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. I don't think that the conservatives don't care for people. I think everyone's trying to care for people, but they're trying to do it in their own different ways. For example, right now at the time I'm recording this video, there's a government shutdown going on, which I think is just a lot of people with Trump derangement syndrome not willing to work with him. And as a result, the left side and the Democrats essentially are letting people who need to be on SNAP and things like that go hungry because the government assistance has run out and it's been over a month and it's just absolute chaos. So at the end of the day, are we really as bad as you guys? That's what I'm saying. But anyways, again, a lot of thoughts that episode 1 really brought up. There's a lot to dive into there, but I think that's the biggest chunk of this video is going to be talking about this episode, to be quite honest.
You can just shut up, baby, because you hate America and you love abortion.
There's a lot I can say about this also. And this is the episode, the big Charlie Kirk episode, okay? Which, of course, in case you don't know, here's what happened, okay? This episode comes out. There is a hardcore Charlie Kirk parody in it. And a few weeks later, as I'm sure you guys are well aware of by this point, on September 9th of 2025, Charlie Kirk gets publicly assassinated at one of his events. It's absolutely tragic, and not gonna lie, I did have a low-key mental breakdown during those couple of days. It was kind of insane. Now, I'm fine now, but I could not help but think that this episode was out there, and going to this episode, I was like, I don't know what to expect, because if this poured fuel on the fire, I'm probably going to be really, really mad. I can thankfully say that I do not think it did. They do poke some fun at Charlie Kirk, but it feels not super heavy-handed, like they're not really trying to rip him a new one or anything like that. They're parodying, making fun of people who do the kind of content that he does, and that is pretty funny, I must say. So Cartman as Charlie Kirk is hilarious. It's also really funny. The master debating joke is hilarious. It's absolutely, it's so funny. But also in this episode, we see Mackie get fired because they make Jesus the new counselor. And, there's some more plots that we'll get into with that in, the next couple of episodes. But we'll talk about that a little more later. There's this whole idea, too, of, quote, making your nut. And I think that's kind of a funny way to say it. And I've been thinking about that, too, anytime I'm talking about someone making money. I just keep thinking in my mind now since this episode, making their nut. I think at the end of the day, it's a really good, level-headed way to look at this stuff, because what happens is, since Mackie loses his job, he decides to go work for ICE because he's got bills to pay and he can't find any place he can work for that would pay him as well. So even though he doesn't quite like doing it, he does it anyways, and because he has to make his nut. That's kind of the thing. That's kind of like the joke. And so at the end, too, we also see Clyde, who's doing, a similar Charlie Kirk kind of thing, also struggling to make his nut because he's trying to, use that platform and stuff, do that kind of thing to make money. And so the point is that people are doing what they got to do because they need to take care of themselves. And I think that's, a fairly reasonable take on some of these things here. I don't think they're beating down on Charlie Kirk or anyone who does a Charlie Kirk style thing. They're not beating down on people who work for ICE because they all have bills to pay. and it just so happens to be the way that they can find to make money. So for that, I have a little bit of sympathy. But two more things I gotta say, sort of in the bad realm, is they make the deporting Dora the Explorer joke, and I'm like, guys, every 6th grader for the last 12 years has made that joke, and it's kind of old. So when I saw that, I was like, I mean, it's kind of funny, but like I've heard this a million times. Also, Crypto gets shot in this, and that hurts. That hurts, honestly. Moving things along.
This seems like the perfect place for a towel.
I can safely say this, up to this point, this is the funniest episode of the 3 episodes that we've started this season with. What happens is Tegrity Farms, because of the whole ICE thing going on, all of their cheap labor gets deported, which is, pretty funny setup. And so Randy and Towley start consulting ChatGPT for some ideas, and it just kind of takes them off the rails. It's really, really funny. It basically ends in a sort of a recreation of the opening of Return of the Jedi, where Towley gets sent to give a present to Donald Trump to try to incentivize him to give Tegrity Farms a government grant. And it's just kind of funny. It does not work at the end of the day, unfortunately. And Tegrity Farms shuts down, which is something really interesting because I know the Tegrity Farms arc has been quite controversial. Some people really love it. I think a lot of people really hate it. I'm kind of mixed on it. I think it's kind of become the new status quo, but I also feel like the stuff with Randy was so much better when he was like in normal neighborhood, normal society, because he could just be that whack job there. But when you have him move out and, sell cannabis on a farm, he's just going too far, is what I think. Too much of a good thing is what I think would happen with Tegrity Farms. But that might be the new status quo. And so for that, I don't know. But it makes me at least interested and intrigued to see where that story arc is going to go after this. I also want to point out, too, I do think it's funny because, they make fun of someone like Mark Zuckerberg in this and a few other companies who just start immediately kissing up to Trump when he comes back in office, even a little bit before, because maybe they just knew he was going to win. I think that's pretty funny because Zuckerberg, I hope what he's doing, his, opinion changes are legit and he's not just doing that to pander because, no one likes a wussy panderer. But I thought that was kind of funny, so I think, it makes every right for South Park to make fun of Zuckerberg for that kind of thing. But yeah, not much more to say. I did enjoy that episode, though. It was a good time. But I think things got even better. And
I want to stop saying my Laboobos are knockoffs.
What is a Laboo?
I'll tell you something about South Park, generally speaking. So, South Park, I mentioned that I love it. I think it's really, really funny. But I think South Park is much more funny when it's making fun of pop culture than it is politics. I think back to some earlier South Park episodes, like seasons like 2 or 3 beginning there all the way through to like when they went serialized, and I forget what season that even was. I think it was like 18 or so. But up until that point, they made a lot more fun of pop culture than politics. They do a few episodes here and there, and so I really, really enjoyed those ones specifically. I thought they were great. This episode sort of returns to that in a lot of ways with the Laboobos, okay, which is hilarious. So there's so many funny things to break down in this episode. I kind of don't know where to begin, so it's probably just going to sound like word spaghetti coming out of my mouth. But there are girls getting into fights over Laboobos in the hallway, and it's hilarious because everyone is, crowding around to watch.
You guys, girls with Laboobos, it's about to happen again.
The girls get sent to the new counselor, being Jesus. Jesus doesn't really know what to do in this situation, honestly, but he knows that something's up with these Laboobos, which we'll circle back to that later. Meanwhile, Butters, this is a big Butters episode too, so that always hits really, really good. So Butters is invited to this one girl's birthday party, and what happens is she wants this specific Labooboo, but they're all in blind boxes and stuff, so he really can't determine that. And so he buys 1 or 2, but the prices are super jacked up because of tariffs and stuff like that, so he doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend. Meanwhile, he bought them from this new Japanese or whatever, I don't remember what the actual country of origins store is, which is in the old City Walk. And yes, I'm saying it like City Walk because I want to keep my language clean on my YouTube channel. He goes there, Mr. Kim basically shut it down, and now it is a imported knickknack store because Walk is dead. I love that so much. It's such a funny joke. Such a funny joke. Anyways, at the end of the day, Butters gets the one. It's super rare or whatever. But meanwhile, Jesus finds out that these Labooboo dolls are satanic and they're being used for satanic rituals, okay? I would happen to agree with that take solely because I dislike Laboobos, not because I actually agree with it. It's also funny because these parents are not taking responsibility for their kids and their actions and these rituals they're trying to do. And Jesus is just like, what is wrong with you guys? Have some common sense. This episode also makes a joke at the expense of Kid Rock being on Fox News. That's kind of funny, especially because, he just said something recently that got him into a lot of hot water on Fox News, which I think is hilarious, honestly.
Guess what I'm going to be?
What?
Guess what I'm going to be?
Fauci?
A retard. A retard.
But anyways, a lot happens in this episode. But at the end of the day, they do a satanic ritual and they summon South Park Satan, who, I forgot to mention this the whole time. He's in a, we'll just use the Jada Pinkett Smith term, entanglement with Donald Trump, which is a big, nod to Saddam Hussein back in the early South Park days. So they're doing that. They summon him, and at the end, it's revealed that Satan is pregnant with Donald Trump's baby, which I don't even know where to begin with that, to be quite honest. But it's interesting. But generally, this is the funniest episode this season. No cap. I absolutely love this episode. It's pretty great, and like I said, I do enjoy it, and I think it's because they're spending more time making fun of pop culture than politics. Because once they get too bogged down in the politics, it just loses its edge.
Will Kyle's mom strike Gaza and destroy Palestinian hospital?
Why the hell would my mom destroy a Palestinian hospital?
'Cause she's a Jew?
I think might just be the worst, and by worst, I mean just least exciting, I don't really care about it episode. Mainly because it has to do with this Israel-Palestine thing everyone's been going on about for the last, feels like a year and a half now. I don't know exactly. I'm not paying a whole lot of attention. I, for one, don't care enough about this. And there's this whole joke going on about will Kyle's mom attack Palestine, which is kind of funny on the surface, but they spend so much time on the joke. And I don't care enough to dig into the deeper aspects of the joke and the nuance. So for me, personally, it fell kind of flat. In this episode, Trump spends a good, half the runtime or so trying to have Satan have an accident in order to kill the baby that, he's pregnant with. And it's really dark. I didn't find it that funny personally, but it is what it is. And again, not a whole lot to say about episode 5. Now, as I mentioned, it's a short season, only 5 episodes. A lot of that, I'm pretty sure, has to do with everything that happened with Charlie Kirk. I can't quite say that for a fact, put my finger on it, but they experienced a lot of delays, and I'm sure all of this turmoil that we had in the United States during that time probably played a really big part in it. But overall, this season, what did I think? Again, that 4th episode I thought was pretty dang good. I enjoyed that. Episode 3 I also enjoyed a good bit. Episodes 1, 2, and 5, not a very big fan of. They were either overly convoluted, boring, or I didn't get the joke because I just don't care enough. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with this season so far. It's not one of the best seasons of the show by a long shot. I feel like they suffer heavily from Trump derangement syndrome. I know you probably have heard that thrown around a lot from the conservatives. Trump derangement syndrome is anything Trump touches is immediately evil and just crazy and bad and things like that. I feel like South Park is hardcore harking on this. I think a lot of people say that South Park is, all neutral or blah, 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 blah. But it's not. It really isn't. It used to come to really nice, nuanced, middle ground opinions on certain things. Like, I think back to the homeschool episode, which I did a big whole reaction video on, and that episode came to one of those conclusions, and I could respect that. But I have a harder time respecting this season and the previous seasons under Trump. I will say, though, as soon as Trump was out of office, those couple seasons of South Park, we had 2 or 3 seasons when Trump was not in office, they were good again. And so I feel like when we have Trump in office, the quality of the show just dips hard, in my opinion. I just don't find it very funny. And I don't know if that's just me and my opinions. I don't know if I'm the only person that feels that way, but they give up what makes the show so good to begin with. Like I said, that pop culture, making fun of stuff, I really appreciate that. Current events, I like that, but when everything is so politicized, I'm just tired of listening to it. I can say the same thing for this season of South Park, and probably the next, 3 seasons we're going to be getting of South Park while Trump's still in office. And I just kind of want him to be over. I'm just kind of done with this, sort of. Now, will I watch all of season 8 and give a review, reaction, whatever? Yeah, probably. But I'm not going to have a good time doing it, probably, unless we get a lot more episodes, more like the Laboo episode. That was fun. It's a little more of a return to form for me. But that's my idea. That's my opinion of South Park Season 27. It was very not great. We'll put it like that. I'm not going to give it an official rating or anything like that, but that's just kind of what it was. What did you think of South Park Season 27? I don't know what you guys thought. I know I'm on the internet. There's a diverse array of political opinions on there, but let me know what you think. Either if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me. If you agree with me, let me know what you thought, and if anything that I said maybe could use some clarification, or you might disagree, even though we largely agree on the same things. Or if you disagreed with me, hey, let me know why you disagreed. Maybe you thought it was more funny because you had more context, because you were looking at something from a different point of view. Sure, hit me up. I want to hear what you guys think. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe button, always appreciated. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm K Swope. Jesus loves you, and I will see you in the next one.